Nice to see some old faces and new faces. And so, yes, I was acting in this position for a year, but it's official that I'm now in this position. So I'm the Deputy Director of the Policy, Advocacy, and Legal Team for the Sierra Club. That includes all of our state and federal lobbyists, our environmental law program, which is made up of about 60 lawyers, and then our labor work and our work on democracy as well. And then I am building out a water campaign, which one day I will come back to you all. Moving things around within the Sierra Club is a slow and terrible process, as some of you know. So it's taking more time than I would like, but we are on the right track, and I will be glad to share that with you once I have more to share. But know that I am moving in that direction, and it's long overdue, as you all know. So what's going on in DC? A lot. We are waiting with a bated breath this weekend for a possible framework around reconciliation. I'm sure folks have been following somewhat in the news, but this is one of two bills that are going to be passed between the House and the Senate to deal with infrastructure. And I'm sure, as folks have seen too, what we are including in infrastructure is not just the usual kind of like, let's build some roads and some dams and dredge some ports and call that infrastructure and fix some bridges. We're really looking at infrastructure in the broadest sense of how our society and our country runs. And a lot of that has to do with how we are going to deal with climate change, how we make sure people have healthy access to water, and lots of other issues like childcare and college education and taxes and so forth and so on. So I could probably spend hours talking to you about the nitty-gritties of what's in it. But when it comes to water, there are some significant progresses that we're making. The lead pipe issue has been one that has been popular and non-controversial in this whole debate that we've been having since the spring about what should be included in the infrastructure bill. Now, we need billions of dollars to get all the lead pipes out of this country. I don't know if we're going to get it in this package. It's to be seen, but we are going to get a major investment. And that major investment is going to go a long way for communities on the ground. I will say, though, that if we don't get full funding this time around in either the infrastructure bill, the bipartisan infrastructure bill, or the reconciliation bill, we are likely to see it funded in other bills that are coming up, including the appropriations bill, which keeps the lights on and the budget going for the federal government. We have a WRDA coming up next year. We have a farm bill coming up. These are all places where we could see increased spending on lead and water. So I feel really optimistic that this is going to be an issue that we're going to be dealing with in a really positive way for the next decade or so, really getting that lead out of the communities through their water sources. When it comes to water affordability, there is still some processes that need to happen within the federal government for us to really take hold of the issue. I'm sure folks are very familiar with the LIHEAP program, which is a program that helps individuals pay for their energy bills if they are disadvantaged and cannot do so themselves. That is a program that is in the federal government. It runs okay and helps affordability on the energy side of things. It's not great, but it's okay. The problem with the water affordability is that we don't even have such a program that's even okay. We've been kind of shoving water utility and issues into this LIHEAP program, but it's not really the best fit. And it's not the best program. So there are people at EPA trying to think through what a program would look like to make sure that people have access to their water all the time, that their water doesn't get shut off on them, that they have affordable access. So that is something that is still being worked out, and to be quite frank, is going to take a long time. It's on the docket to be thought about by EPA, but as we all know, working with EPA, they don't move very fast. No administration does. And so they're just getting their legs under them when it comes to what rulemakings they're going to be thinking about and doing. And on that, when it comes to rulemakings, you probably have seen, and I know, I think Elaine might have sent it to me as well, so I'm sure she sent it to the group. They are starting roundtables, the EPA, to discuss the waters of the US jurisdiction. Again, it's kind of like the issue that never goes away, that and Yazoo pumps. That those roundtables are going to be happening across the country. And I will have information for this group and all the other water sentinels who might be interested in joining those to discuss why we should be protecting all of our waters under the Clean Water Act and not just some. The EPA also just recently, was it this week or last week, they're starting to blend together. I think it was this week, their PFAS action plan to get, and that does deal with getting PFAS, an emergent contaminant, out of some of the water systems. The Sierra Club didn't make a public statement on that because, quite frankly, we were disappointed in how unimaginative and unaggressive that plan was. I put in a couple of calls privately to relay that message. We didn't say it publicly, but we have a great staffer, Sonia Lunder, who lives in Colorado, who's our senior toxic advisor, and who will be instrumental in the water program that we are building, really digging in on that and trying to figure out that particular issue. And especially sometimes, and I saw earlier on the agenda, y'all talked about fracking, talking about PFAS and fracking, because it's also used, it's one of the chemicals used in the fracking process. So we're figuring all of these rulemakings out. There is a very long list from not only what Trump rolled back the last 4 years, but also all the progressive things that we haven't gotten done. I think there's just this reality that President Obama, while a good president, wasn't really a strong environmental president until the end of his presidency, and water was never one of his top issues. And so there's a lot to be done there. I'm sure we could talk for hours about how the ag industry has, the federal water standards around ag issues has been, not dealt with in the right way. Of course, this issue of affordability has been happening around the country for a very long time, but probably only within the last couple of years has been brought to the attention of the federal government. So there's just a lot on the docket that need to be dealt with that has just been ignored, quite frankly. I am hopeful that we're going to make some progress within this reconciliation and infrastructure bill. We do have some champs on the Hill who really want to think especially about how our water issues affect environmental justice issues in communities, majority or minority communities and disadvantaged communities that don't have as much of a voice in our government as they should. So there is a lot of progress moving forward. It is slow. And one of the things that I think we will be looking at is how we can, at least as the Sierra Club, that I would really like to look into is how we lift up what is happening in your states, because the states do move a little faster. Some of the states are really gold standards of how we can deal with a lot of these issues. And so making sure that the states get Sierra Club help and backing where they need it. And then also making sure that that is used as a point of reference as we move forward within other states and then within the federal government. So that's a lot. And we are still building internally. As folks know, the Sierra Club is going through a lot of transitions right now. We have a new acting executive director. Mike Brune is still on staff helping advise as he moves out of that position to the end of the year. But then we will be going through an executive search next year, which will probably take up the whole year. We are going through a structural assessment of how our chapters function within the Sierra Club, and they have some changes coming towards them. And so there's just a lot going on, and there's a lot of transition within the Sierra Club, within our society with COVID, and figuring out what we want from the world that we're looking at now. And so I ask for some patience, but we are working really hard. The staff are, we're working all this weekend trying to get information out of the White House of what this new deal might look like. We're hoping it's going to be done by next week, but we thought it was going to be done at the end of September too, so no promises. So lots going on, but I'm always happy to answer some questions, or if there's anything else people want me to drill down more on, I'm happy to do that as well. So Debbie, I'll turn it over to you to best move forward.
So we're encouraging people to write questions in the chat, and Esther is going to read them.
Okay, so the question from Nicole is, isn't LIWAP federal? Did she say there's no water affordability program at the federal level?
So there is, it's just not, it doesn't function the way we need it to. And it's not a program that we can build off of. So it was put in place as a kind of backfill for just the need in the moment. So what the EPA is really trying to figure out right now is how we build a more permanent and encompassing program. And that might take an act of Congress. That might not be able to be done just through the administration, but those kind of details are being hammered out now.
So Dalal, I'm on a conference call every other week with people that are working on the program that Health and Human Services is developing to implement this emergency COVID-driven water payment assistance program. So I know that it's just emergency and it's just for COVID, but it is $1 billion. So it's being administered most of the time in each of the states through the same agency that does LIHEAP. Health and Human Services does LIHEAP. So, our government structure, people thought, well, let's give water to them to do that. So yes, I think it's, I'm glad to hear EPA is taking it seriously and that they want to do something that makes it more permanent than just this one-time thing.
Okay, and our next question is from Robert. Is the Sierra Club making the connection of biodiversity and water?
Yes. So there's a couple of ways Sierra Club is thinking about biodiversity and water. Our Wild America campaign, which is also going through a transition with its new leader, Chris Hill, is looking really at the connections within their 30 by 30 campaign, which I know some of you all know. Now that campaign is a structure and, quite frankly, doesn't have a ton of meat on its bones just yet, as they're talking to funders and trying to figure out where the Sierra Club's niche is on that. But within that 30 by 30, which is to save 30% of lands by 2030, water is a part of that, because we don't get to that number unless we include some of our major waterways as well. And so the connection of working with especially our hunter and angler friends on those issues like Trout Unlimited and Ducks Unlimited, and really kind of pulling those together. So our Wild America is thinking of that, and especially within their Endangered Species Act work, there's a lot of water underlays in there, because to save a lot of those species, sometimes we need to save a lot of the water that is critical to either their habitat or mating or hunting, or food sources and things of that nature. So there's that connection with our Wild America side of things. But then, we also work on the Migratory Bird Act, which again goes towards saving our migratory birds, but it has a lot to do with waterways and protecting their routes on that section. And that bill that act has been under attack for a couple of years now, but we're looking to strengthen it through our litigation program. And then I will say on things like the waters of the US issue, we are always looking for diverse coalitions to talk about why our waters are important. And again, just thinking back to Trout Unlimited, who I know I work closely with, they have been really out front talking about the connection of clean waterways to the importance of, the anglers and healthy fish populations. So there is a lot of overlap there, just depending on the issue. But it is something Sierra Club thinks about. And I will say just generally, the water issue comes up in all of our campaigns that even maybe don't necessarily think of themselves as water campaigners, because when it comes down to it, the way we produce our energy, the way we produce our food, all comes down to water issues. So a lot of them have that interconnection, and not just with the biodiversity, but that's an important one.
Okay, great. Yeah, we have more questions coming in, so I'll go in the order that we're getting them. Dalal, Mike wants to know your thoughts. He says it's hard to work on water quality without also working on soil health. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, so I think that is something that we haven't really dug into a lot as the Sierra Club, or at least on a federal level. And I think a lot of that might have to do with the hesitation to always go up against ag. Now, that's not a reason to not work on it, but I think that's just kind of the political reality we have found ourselves in. I think that as we move forward, talking about water issues and the fact that we have a farm bill coming up in Congress next year, there is going to be a lot of talk about soil and how we have soil health and how we use fertilizers and non-point pollution sources that are going to be brought up and thought about in a way that we haven't. I will say that when we talked to the transition team, now I guess not quite a year ago, the community wrote a lot of transition papers on different policies that we wanted to see addressed. And ag was definitely in there. And ag was talked about in a way that was not only really progressive, but that it was extremely needed in a time that it has been ignored a lot by the federal government. So I think you'll see that come up more and more, but it is an issue that I think that we have wrongfully neglected for a long time on a lot of levels.
Great, thank you. Nicole has a question. Why was LIWAP, I'm sorry, it just moved on me. Why was LIWAP established as a temporary placeholder afterthought, unlike LIHEAP?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know the thinking behind that, Nicole. I really wish I do. I think that, I'd hate to be cynical here, but I think that the water issues hit Black and brown communities, and maybe that's why it was more ignored than some other issues. That's my cynical side of it. But when you talk about the energy side of things, people usually take more notice. There's more money there. There's a lot more lobbyists there. There's a lot more, talk about grandma not having heat in the middle of winter. When it comes to water issues, it's just always been on the back burner. And I know for this group, that makes no sense, because it makes no sense for me either. But the LIHEAP the program has now been around, I think, since the 80s or 90s. So for a couple of decades now, but we've never had a conversation about a water one until recently. So I am also perplexed on why that is, but we're going to make sure that they do it right. At least we have something now, a structure to look at to see maybe like what they did right and what they did wrong. And maybe we can make the water one stronger.
Great, thank you. And I think the next couple of things in the chat you covered actually with that explanation. So Elaine would like to know, what is Sierra Club doing about water quantity shortages?
Yes. So we are, as again, building out this water program. We're thinking through how we deal with all aspects of water. And as you know, I mean, we could have a whole organization that just works on water issues. There are organizations that just work on water issues because they are so many different ways to deal with either quantity or quality or climate change or biodiversity and all of, energy. So one thing that we're going to be doing, at least that I can speak to for this year club, is we're under the PAL department, which is the Policy, Advocacy and Legal Team that I'm the deputy of. We are going to hopefully by the end of the year, maybe early next year, hire somebody who's going to be doing Western water issues for the federal policy team. So that's something that's on my agenda to do. And so that person will, we haven't defined exactly what Western waters look like, but I'm sure as folks who do Western waters know, quantity is a huge part of that. So that will be a part of their time and effort and, making sure that they are supported within the water structure that I'm trying to build out will also be critical because we just don't want them to be hanging out there on their own. So that's what I can speak for the Sierra Club right now. But yeah, and I hear Elaine's excited about that because I know she's
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm very excited. So Dalal, while you're there, I'm hoping that the process for looking for that person can involve the Western Water sub-team that we currently have so that we're part of that whole discussion, et cetera. I think you know where I'm coming from. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, and I think that actually concludes the questions. And I think we covered all the topics that are there. So I will throw it back to Debbie. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dalal. So lots of great questions. The stuff was like in my mind today. I've seen almost all those presentations before, so it all fit together. I'm just so proud of my ideas that really did work with a whole agenda for the whole day. So we're going to start again tomorrow with another topic on lead. So I will be sending out the registration form at 8 a.m. Central Time. My computer will do that for me. So see you again tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.